My name is Spencer Taylor. I'm the CEO of Medicaid Soft and an entrepreneur my entire career.
Let me ask you this. I made a little bit of a pivot in the podcast, I think, since we last spoke.
Okay.
We had like a season 1, season 2. So what I've been doing recently with my interviews is I have been interviewing entrepreneurs on their miracle, mystical, and spiritual experiences that they've had. And it has been a lot of fun. And so I'm curious, have you ever had a miracle, mystical, or spiritual experience that you'd be willing to share on the podcast?
Yeah, you bet. You bet. I've seen a number of miraculous events unfold in my career as an entrepreneur, and I don't think I can speak to all of them. I have ideas about that, though. I believe that a loving God cares most about our progress, not about our business success. And I think that it's best to try to align yourself to that when you're engaging with that higher power, if that makes sense. And while we have to focus on our success, if you can align more to that higher power's will, then things unfold better for you. And success happens some of that time. Some of that time is part of the process, but it's not always. And I saw recently some great things come together just in my current business. So I'm with Medicaid Soft, and we're like a TurboTax for Medicaid professionals. And we've been raising money, which is a very difficult thing to do, especially in this environment right now. And I planned an event for us to share our pitch with our pool of investors that are in our orbit and bring as many people as we can. And I've prepared for that for months, actually, trying to get the company up to certain levels where we could raise money, where we'd hit certain milestones. There's a lot of work that went into that just to prepare. And along the way, there's some outreach to random investors. And one of the points that I made to do that just came across my plate quickly, and I almost didn't do it, was to send an application for this pitch competition with Utah Tech Week. And it turns out that out of 130 applicants, they chose me and 4 others to come present at the pitch competition. And that pitch competition was 2 days before this big event that I was planning myself. So that gave a lot of momentum to the effort. And then I wound up winning the pitch competition too, and filling part of our round with that prize money. And so that gave a ton of momentum and allowed us to go raise our round in the wake of this. And it was one of those fortuitous little moments that fell out of the sky in conjunction with this other piece that I'd been working on and focusing on and building, and it supercharged it. And so that's, I can see both dimensions at play with that. And I stand back and look at it and go, man, I'm so grateful for that. And I know there was some help there. That's how I look at it.
That's amazing. No, good. Right up the alley of what we're looking for. As far as like having success and following the guiding system, or like, reaching for the energy that is guiding you in your progress, I find myself experiencing a lot of pain when I am trying to reach any goal, just any of them, anything that I want. The old Buddhist framework of it just causes suffering. If I want to hit a number in sales, if I want to hit a quota, as a leadership team, if I want to hit any sort of KPI, it seems like it is just a battle and a struggle every single time that it happens. And when I let go of the number, things seem to work out. But it's almost as if, like, if I didn't set the goal, that's like bad business sense, right? I need to have goals. But every time that I focus on those goals, right, that I think generate my success, I create quite a bit of friction and pain and stress for myself. And I'm curious how you would counsel me to balance that, right? How do you set goals and not suffer? How do you freaking grit your teeth and dig your heels in and get where you want to go without suffering? Or is it literally just impossible? Is the entrepreneurial journey just suffering?
I want to reframe the thought a little bit. Let me tell you a little story about Alexander Selkirk. I don't know if you know who this guy is, but he's the real life human upon which Robinson Crusoe was based. He was marooned back in the 1700s by himself on an island for a few years. And in the first portion of his endeavor there, he set up shop on the beach, and he sat on the beach. He would fish, would eat, and he would sit there. And he was essentially deactivated. And I know you probably watched survival shows. It's not easy, but at the same time, he was not active, and he dwindled as far as his health. He was starving, and depression set in, and he got very close to death as a result. And then everything changed. One day, the beach was inundated with seals or some other group of animals that were aggressive enough that they pushed him inland away from where he'd set up shop. And so he no longer had the sea as this resource, as well as maybe a calming or soothing source. He couldn't sit on the beach anymore. And he wound up rethinking his rifle and his other tools, and he pulled them apart and created different tools for agricultural purposes and working, building huts. He created a network of huts throughout the island, and he taught himself how to hunt the goats that were on the island. And then he taught himself how to make clothes out of their skins. And he started to thrive. He started to thrive mentally as well. And later on, after being rescued, and reflecting back on that, he counted that time period of his life as the happiest of his life. And it was a time when he was suffering and struggling, but he was anxiously engaged in a pursuit that activated him. And so I believe that the most important thing that you can do in life is to activate. And I actually have identified that as my life's purpose, is to activate as many people as possible. Strictly speaking, I want to maximize human ingenuity through human activation and effort. And I think, you mentioned suffering. I think suffering is a part of that process. That's how I look at it. And so I think the idea of escaping suffering might have some misleading effects. It can also be correct in some ways, but I think the aim should be activation in something interesting. And so I have a picture of him on my wall, and I don't have any quotes or any. Well, I do have a quote on my wall next to it, and it's Ralph Waldo Emerson. And it says, it's a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. It says, people wish to be settled. Only as far as they are unsettled is there any hope for them. That might not be exactly suffering, but he's calling it settled and unsettled. And I think of it in terms of activation and deactivation, right? That's not to say there's not room for vacations and meditation. That's all part of the process of balance and activating over time the right way, right? But that's how I think about it. And so, yeah, I think that having goals and striving for them and experiencing pain along the way is part of coming alive more fully. That's the philosophy that I try to embrace, and I'm not perfect at it. I've been growing into that for a long time.
Yeah. Activate me. I have been on, and all of our listeners know this about me. So, left the church, did ayahuasca, and I've been on this journey of self-discovery and reflection because I've had these incredible spiritual experiences in my life, and it's the thing that I want to do. I'll tell you, top of my list. I love coaching jujitsu, right? That's top of the list of things that I enjoy. And I enjoy podcasting, and I enjoy interacting with people and pitching, just speaking and and like, you remember all the competitions that I was doing. Like, it was so, it's fun. It's such a blast. And I find myself in my businesses like definitely on the grind, and I'm not doing much of those things inside of the business, right? It's a lot of sales. I'm just doing a lot of sales and like building the company, building the revenue, building the teams and all of that. And so with that as kind of the backdrop, what are some of the steps that I can take to become activated?
I think activation is about balance. Or balance is necessary for activation to happen, right? And then struggle is as well. And so it's more a question of, am I in balance? Am I out of balance with any of these things? And so you mentioned in your life how you've gone on this journey and you've faced these different struggles and these different transformations, and so that's taken you this direction. And you need to remember, like anybody who moves in any direction in their life, it's very easy to mistake the direction as the right thing instead of the balance that it brings, because you can go too far in any direction. And I don't know that you are, and that's not my commentary that you are necessarily. But with what's happening in your business right now, and the things that you're trying to balance, I would say that you need to. Well, I don't know. I don't know that I know enough about you to give specific advice on how to achieve that balance, except that it's to be found in the struggle, right? And that struggle is going back and forth between pushing and then backing off and letting go. That's part of the process. That's part of activation.
I'm in a scary letting go portion of the business. So February has sucked. It has been just a slog. I'm getting rescheduled. I'm getting lots of no's. I'm getting lots of nothing. I had a beautiful pitch the other day that I made to this guy, and thought he was feeling it, and it was exactly what he needed from what he had told me and what my discovery had yielded. But I asked him on a scale of 1 to 10, right? Like 10 being you're ready to go, 1 being this isn't interesting. Where are you? And he's like, a 3. I was just like, okay, how do we get to a 4? And he's like, I don't know. I just got to think about it. Dude, I was like, I almost punched a hole in the computer because I was just so upset about that instance. And so I was like, all right, you know what? That's great. Like, I'll send you an email about it. Let me know if anything changes. And so, we had in October, this company that I was working for, and was offered equity, was shut down by the Federal Trade Commission.
Oh no.
And it was evil. They're evil. They're so bad. We hired a contractor who was helping us with fulfillment, and that contractor was scamming people. And so they thought that we were that contractor's latest scam, and they shut the business down. We did like $4 million in 10 months. And I was at the spearhead of that. I made it all happen. Business was humming. We had 100 clients. Like, life was good. And they just took it. They just took it from us. And so if you were an eagle in the sky over my house in October, November, and December, you would have seen me walking around with this freaking baby, this beautiful little boy in my stroller with my AirPods in, having 100 conversations with all these people and all these employees, and like trying to hold it all together and hold it down. And it was a nightmare. It was a total freaking nightmare. And so then the business gets shut down and we got to pivot. And so I focused on, I had another business that, is become the focus. And I've had to grieve and try to pivot in that whole experience. And in the meantime, like trying to be my best self and, and provide as much value to people as I can. And it's been a lot. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah.
The last 5 years, man.
That's all fresh. And I'll bet you haven't had enough space to understand the impact that's had on your perspective and your values yet. But I guarantee that it has.
Oh man.
I guarantee that it has.
I'm tired of learning, Spencer. I'm tired of it, dude.
Yeah, I know. And I've talked to people who are in, I talked to a guy who was who is kind of like, okay, God, I think I've got the picture. Like the whole life, your whole life is a process of becoming. Doesn't stop. It's what you do along the way, and of course you're gunning for those wins, and you want them to happen. You want to happen on your time frame, but it doesn't always work out that way, right? That's frustrating, man. That's a lot to take on. And let me just reiterate one thing to you that I wish I went 11 months without a paycheck a year ago, right? It's a very stressful time, and I've been evaluating my physiology through some testing, and the stress that I absorbed and experienced in that time hurt me. And now I'm doing things to correct that and fix that. You got to be able to figure out how to process that stress. Okay. Just, friend, figure that out, man. Prioritize it. You know, a lot of the tools, right?
This podcast, right? Which will be sliced up in all kinds of ways to make it cohesive, because I've been all over the place with you. I've interviewed some really cool people that have given me a lot of good advice. And I have been coming at it from a spiritual perspective, because spiritually, in September of 2019, I was on Pleasant Grove. I was on Timpanogos Mountain, and I took that opportunity to pray all day and put it all out on the line. And I was asking God, like, I need the feeling back. I had lost it. I just wasn't feeling it, the spirit, for like a year. And I started thinking that I was crazy, and that I was just like playing tricks on myself, and that it was all fake. And that I was just like, because of the priming that I had as a kid, that I was just feeding and myself towards thinking that I was feeling these feelings and hearing these voices and experiencing these miracles. So I walked down from that mountain, and I was done.
Wow.
And so now I've been asking everybody about their spiritual experiences to try and kind of detangle the whole thing and understand it a little bit better. And it's honestly left me, it's me be even more done. But then I'm walking around the block, and I keep feeling like, man, I could really use like some divine support right now. But one of the conclusions that I came to from that mountain was, I'm on my own. I've got the help and advice of other people, but like, it's just me. No one's coming to save me. There's no God that's going to help me. I'm on my own. So that's the perspective that's been like reiterated in my brain. And so that's where I'm at right now,
That's a direction a lot of people go when they're very, very introspective and they're experiencing serious struggle. And I am that to a point. I haven't walked all the way down that path myself, but I've been with people as they had. Let me tell you what I know. I was with a Hindu friend of mine, and we were talking about there is a or unseen influence that minds can tap into. And in Christianity, you'd call it the spirit of God, right? And in other religions, it's something else. That's real. I know that that's real. And I know that it comes from a place of goodness and light. I also know that it's commandeering our minds and our thoughts, but it's in and it plays a role. And that is something that I've become so certain of, that I'm just grateful when it shows up and when it visits. But that alone tells me that I'm not alone. There is another influence that comes into my mind and my heart sometimes. And that same influence is for you, but I don't know when and how it knocks, but it's there.
I've heard a lot of stories now, right? Like this whole season of podcast episodes has been people telling me their stories of hearing. Everybody calls it something different, and I'm trying to detangle that. God, the Tao, Hura Mazda, the spirit, intuition, flow. And unfortunately, where I'm at as of this moment is it would appear to me that the experience of the spirit is definitionally, right, because it's something that you feel inside of you, it is a physiological experience. And I don't know that I believe that there's something outside of our physiology that is experiencing it. And that's where I'm really at this crossroads and trying to figure that out, is like, is there a hand of God or an outside thing that's coming in and touching it, or is just my brain making it? I need the right mix of neurochemicals and the right synapses and actually hitting in order to feel the serotonin and oxytocin pump into my body so that I can feel the spirit. You know what I mean?
Right. And think that the physiology is part of the process. But I don't think the physiology can account for ideas and intelligence flowing into your mind in moments when it doesn't even occur to you. I've had prompts enter my mind that were out of the blue. I had a prompt to put my hand on my steering wheel and get ready to honk my horn moments before encountering an enormous elk that would have wrecked the boat I was towing at full speed. And I honked the horn and it got out of the way. And I mean, that might not be the best example because maybe there were other factors in the environment that led my to become aware of it. But I've had others as well. So I would say I think physiology is, but I don't think it can account for specific out of the blue ideas that pop into your head. And I think that's a different kind of evidence for it. But I understand where you're at. And I love that you're so honest with it. I love having conversations like this, Eric. And I have so much respect for you, my man.
It's my sole focus right now, other than picking up the pieces. So, and where can everyone find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Spencer Taylor 24. You can look up Medicaid Soft.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been the Pulse Ox podcast. Please, if you found this episode valuable, give us a like on Spotify and share it with a friend.